Neighbor wars that escalated fast. First story is called Psycho Neighbor, so that's always a good sign. So I've had this neighbor for 11 and a half years. She's 75 and I'm 41. Something is very, very off with this woman. She lives alone and never has any visitors, so I would invite her down to me for some tea. So I started noticing a victim complex. I would invite her down for dinner and say, I'll pay for delivery, yada, yada, yada. So the entire time she would complain, there's never any options for vegetarians. Then the food would come and she would just complain the entire time. Or I would get food to go and say, want to go for a walk? And I'll pass you any veggie stuff and a cake or whatever. She would just complain the entire time, still stating no vegetarian options. She seemed to hate seeing me happy or something, like she was trying to make me miserable with her. Well, miserable people hate happy people. Facts. Or I would say, oh, my bathroom window is broken. And she would say, I haven't even got a bathroom window. Or when I broke my foot, she would say, my friend might lose his leg. No matter what it is, she always has it worse. Or I was on the dating apps for a bit and she would always say, well, there must be something wrong with you. Well, there must be something wrong with them on there at this age. Then I would see her scanning my face looking for a reaction, and I just refused to give her one. She repeated that exact same insult at least 3 times a week, a few different weeks apart. It didn't get her whatever reaction she was looking for, so she kept repeating it. Bizarrely, I fixed her phone for her and I saw the dating apps on her phone. Literally all of them with notifications, yet she threw that insult and asked me how they work whilst already being on them. Very strange. Girl is 71 and on the dating apps? Oh, you are never too old for love, baby, or other things. Or another time I was seeing someone and it didn't work out and I was telling her about it. I saw the look on her face. She was happy about it, like actually. So around this time, all her kids and grandkids went no contact with her and the one kid who does speak to her moved away to China. So anyway, I started distancing myself from her as much as possible. Then all of a sudden, she started giving me the silent treatment. Not speaking at all, even crossed over to avoid me one time. I thought, great, problem solved. Adios, hun. This is where it gets really weird though. I'm no contact with my own mother, and as such, she used to turn up at my flat and be ringing my doorbell all the time, trying to force her way in. I did a police report and she backed off. For that reason, I don't answer my doorbell ever unless I'm expecting someone. For years now, my doorbell has been ringing all hours of the night and in the day and stuff. I always presumed it was my mother dearest and I just ignored it because it upsets me. So this neighbor, I noticed she would ask me about it a lot, and as a result, I had a suspicion that she might be doing it to upset me or on purpose, but I had zero proof nor evidence. When she would ask me about it, she would have a little smirk on her face. That's what it was that got my attention. So I noticed every Sunday for about a month, the doorbell goes off at about 3 p.m. So one Sunday, I was ready for it. I was literally just locking my doors and my bell goes. I was at the communal front door in 3 seconds. It was her. I saw my neighbor sneaking in, trying to quietly close the door with both hands in it and a smirk. She turned and saw me standing there and looked like a deer in headlights. Then she silently ran off upstairs. I literally caught her doing it. That woman has sat in my home on my couch drinking my tea, asking me about it for 8 years, and the entire time, it was her. I was thinking about it when I broke up with my ex. The doorbell ringing started up again, and then she would ask me about it. She was using my ex as a cover, wanting me to think that he was stalking me or something. Or there was another ex, and same thing again. She is giving baby reindeer. If you don't know that reference, it's a documentary on Netflix, and you want to watch it. It's not a documentary. They recreated a true story into a TV show. You should watch it. Also, the doorbell ringing has completely stopped since I caught her, so it kind of speaks for itself. So lately, she's been in the garden a lot, trying to get my attention. I ignore her and I act like she doesn't exist. Or I saw her in the shops and she tried to talk to me. I ignored her and I silently walked away. She's hovering. So anyways, I have done an ASB report with the landlord, who has thus far done nothing. I reported this 3 months ago, and I specifically asked for a welfare check because she's clearly unwell and is also hoarding in the flat. They just say that'll go to the ASB team, and then that'll go to the housing management team. That was 3 months ago, and it has been silent ever since. So I've made a formal complaint about her inaction. That's been ignored as well. What can I do here? This behavior obviously isn't normal. Edit. I'm thinking, seeing as the landlord isn't doing anything, do a police report and ask them to issue a harassment PIN. Maybe adult social services as well. I do think a welfare check is a good idea. I think it's sweet that you're considering that, given that she hasn't been the kindest to you. And if someone was ringing my doorbell all day or in the middle of the night, how startling that would be. Let me know what you guys would do if you were in this position. It's such a shame because you could have a really nice relationship with her. You know, you could be friends, you could keep her company, you could have tea together, but she's miserable. Next story, extremely nosy and evasive neighbor. 2 years ago, me and my partner bought our first house together. The house was a great shell, but needed a lot of work doing inside, which was a big task we weren't sure we wanted to take on. However, the house came with a huge and beautiful garden, which overlooked the moors and was extremely peaceful. Say less. Beautiful garden. Oh, I'm sold. This alone sold us on the house, as we both have stressful jobs and we love relaxing in the garden with a good book and our dog to wind down. Our house is in the end of 2 sets of semi-detached houses, so there are 4 huge back gardens next to each other. We only have one next to us, being the end one. When we got the keys, we didn't actually move in for months, as the whole house had to be knocked back to the brick and completely redone. Between us and my in-laws, we would be in our garden a lot, using it as a workshop essentially. Our neighbor is a man in about his 60s and lives alone with his 2 daughters who visit. He still works, so he still goes out and about. Whenever we were in the garden sorting stuff for the house, he would always come out and chat. At first, we never thought anything of this. It seemed like we had a nice neighbor who was just trying to build a relationship with new neighbors and asking how the house renovation was going, all of that. However, this has now slowly been getting worse over the last year, especially as the house renovation is now done and we only go in the garden to actually just relax, have friends and family over, or read. We started noticing our neighbor becoming a bit nosy and intrusive when he started coming out of his way to come talk to us. Even if it meant he was shouting across the street to us, only coming outside because he had seen us, and as soon as we went inside, he did too, making comments such as, "I noticed your car hasn't been leaving until later in this week. Is it because you're on work training?" We would have friends and or family over in the back garden, and he would come out into his back garden and interrupt all of us and start a conversation and not leave even when the conversation is ended and we've gone back to talking to whoever we have over, which would then be awkward. It started to feel like he was genuinely monitoring all of our moves and needed to be involved and know about everything and anything that we were doing. I've even caught him peeping around his front door when I've returned home, watching what I'm doing. I'm now currently heavily pregnant and off work for a year, so spending more time in the garden than ever. Every single time now that I step into the back garden, the second I sit down, my neighbor is instantly out, hanging over our fence, and stares at me until I acknowledge him. And if I don't acknowledge him because I genuinely haven't seen him, he makes his presence known by completely disrupting whatever I'm doing and starting a conversation. Can you imagine just wanting peace and quiet in your beautiful garden, and you want to be alone and you want to read and you want to just chill, and someone just comes and talks to you? Ew. That's my nightmare. Once the conversation ends, he doesn't leave and he just hangs over the fence, staring and watching. This is extremely uncomfortable for me. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, whether it's 8 a.m., afternoon, or late evening. The minute I get into my garden, he's out and badgering me, bombarding me with questions that he's already asked me before, so it's like it's an excuse just to talk, then doesn't leave and just hangs over the fence staring. He also does it with my partner and in-laws when they're over, but nowhere near as much as he does with me. I genuinely do not know how to handle this situation. If he was coming out into his garden to do something, had a quick hello and chat, and then carried on with his task, and I carried on with mine, then I really wouldn't mind. But he comes out just because he's seen me and doesn't leave. I have to go back inside to get rid of him, and as soon as I go back in, so does he. I've tried chatting to my in-laws and asking them not to tell him anything about us. They help out with the garden maintenance a lot as they are retired, because he then uses that info to hound me the next time. I've tried explaining how uncomfortable he now makes me as he is monitoring our every single move and being extremely invasive. My mother-in-law seems to get it, but my father-in-law doesn't quite get why it's stressing me out so much. I've also tried just ignoring him, sitting facing back to his garden, covering my face with a book so that I haven't seen him, wearing headphones even if I'm not listening to music, just to look like I'm busy, and still none of it works. He will come out and stand there staring until it's physically impossible to ignore him, as he will do something to get my attention, as he will not move until I have acknowledged him. Then, once I have, he still doesn't leave. This is just a brief summary of what he's like, but how many comments he's made that shows he genuinely tracks every single thing we do, and how much he harasses us in our garden is unreal. I'm getting myself more and more worked up about this as I'm having a year off, and obviously want to bring my child into the garden as much as I can without being hounded and watched. I feel like I need to say something to our neighbor rather than just make the fence higher. We both own the fence anyways, so I can't do anything without his permission, so that he understands he's being invasive and intrusive. But I also don't want conflict with my neighbors. I've tried talking to people about it for advice, and they've all been just as stumped as I have, as he's in his own garden. So how do I word it? And what can I do about it? I mean, that was my suggestion. I was like, have you tried talking to him? And just saying, we love catching up with you once in a while, but when we come out here in our garden, we really just want peace and quiet. That's all. Is that nice? Like, that's nice, right? That's honest. We love chatting with you, but not really. Just totally kidding. I think the only way to go about it is to have a conversation with him, be honest, but be kind about it. I don't want to write that script for you though. Mine might be a little sassy. Next story, my crazy neighbor was going through my car. Thief. My 40 male neighbor, 60 something female, and her husband moved in about 2 years ago. Things were going well, friendly with each other, and I was more than helpful. Within the first 6 months, I had fixed her lawnmower and her thermostat on her house. While fixing her lawnmower, her husband, who's wheelchair bound, she and I were hanging out in the backyard. I could see a look on the husband's face like something was not okay. The sun was getting to him. I say to her, "Hey, you ought to get this guy inside. It is hot and he is not looking so well." She dismissed me, kind of like she was punishing him. Okay, well, I'm concerned by that. So a few months go by, we hear her air conditioning is going down, she doesn't want help, she refuses air conditioning as she goes to work, and her immobile husband is cooking in her house all day. Not surprising. A few months later, her husband passes away. Oh, we were way too casual about that. My heart! Now it is winter. She starts letting her old cat out for days at a time in sub-freezing temperatures. It is at this point I feel she is trying to her own cat. I tried to let it in my window several times. I would have had a place for that baby to stay warm and eat. It always just refuses, just outside my window. So eventually her husband and cat passed away. I think one to the heat and one to the cold. Just in my head at this point though. Next summer, she places a sign towards my house that says, "Stay off my lawn." Funny, I am never on her lawn. Whatever. She then proceeds to tell our neighborhood president that I was shooting our grass when mowing onto her lawn and also plugging up her air conditioner. For real? I started blowing all the grass the opposite direction. The neighborhood president comes down to see and agrees that she is tripping. I wake up to a person raking outside my window, raking non-existent grass from her lawn over to ours. It is midnight. Okay, well, midnight she is doing this. Finally, about 4 days ago, I heard her raking. I'm thinking, whatever, crazy. It stops, but I hear it start again and I think, I gotta see this, cause WTF is she doing? She throws down her rake and starts pillaging through my car. So I flick open my window and the conversation goes as this. Me, what are you doing going through my car? You are a certified psychopath. Her, y'all are dope smokers. And she repeats that 3 times. Me, don't nobody here smoke dope. Is that what you are on? I got you getting into my car on film. Her just keeps pointing and screaming to the neighbors, dope smokers, WTF, never done dope in my life. What is this? There's just so much to process there. I genuinely think we need to do a welfare check. She sounds unwell. And then her cat, her husband, I can't imagine dealing with that all the time. And you were friends at first. We were friendly neighbors. What changed? Next story, held hostage in my own apartment by 24/7 loitering neighbors. Writing to address a series of ongoing and increasingly disruptive issues involving my neighbor and his family. What initially began as minor inconveniences has escalated into a pattern of behavior that significantly infringes upon my privacy, peace, and overall quality of life in my home. Initially, I observed frequent and somewhat unusual activity from his brother, who would repeatedly walk back and forth to his own vehicle whenever I was outside. He would often attempt to engage me in conversation, but his low speaking volume consistently made it impossible to understand what he was saying. While I initially tried to adapt to these occurrences, given our apartment living situation, the behavior of the family, particularly my neighbor, became increasingly concerning and felt like a form of harassment. A significant point of concern involves my second-story garden. I want a garden after reading all these stories. I live in a condo. How can I have a little garden?
You can't.
Because we're not allowed to do that on the balcony. So, on numerous occasions, when I would be tending to my plants, I noticed either his brother moving around purposefully or my neighbor deliberately sitting on his porch, smoking and drinking. During these times, he would make highly inappropriate comments, specifically discussing my mother and a desire to date her. To establish a clear boundary and deter further observation, I installed a visual barrier, a tarp, on my balcony. Furthermore, my mother directly messaged him, stating her lack of interest and requesting that he cease all inappropriate remarks and attempts to communicate with me. Following my mother's intervention, direct conversational overtures from him have largely subsided. However, his presence and related disruptive behaviors have persisted and, in some ways, intensified. He is almost constantly positioned on his porch throughout the day and well into the late hours of the night. During this time, I am frequently subjected to loud bodily noises such as burping, as well as the audible cracking open of numerous beer cans. I'm only laughing because I know that some people on here hate when I burp in a video. Compounding this, the persistent odor of cigarette smoke permeates my living space even when he is not directly visible outside. The constant presence and the associated disturbances make it virtually impossible for me to find any solitude or peace in my own home, particularly in my garden space where I like to recharge. Even when I attempt to use my balcony late at night, hoping for quiet, his continuous activity, including going in and out of his apartment to retrieve more beverages, ensures that the disruption is ongoing. The pervasive nature of these disturbances is deeply frustrating and has a substantial negative impact on my ability to enjoy my residence. The brother walks back and forth to his car up to 100 times a day, doing unnecessary tasks like testing car features and wiping the dashboard with a microfiber cloth. I'm convinced it's primarily because I'm outside and he loves the 4 people into conversation and he constantly tries to speak with me through my tarp. And his brother is up from 9 a.m. to 3 a.m. I understand I live in an apartment with the predicament that I am placed in. It's completely unacceptable. I feel like I'm being harassed and stalked because I can just never have a moment without them being around. don't. I've never had this issue. I have lived in apartments since I was 17 years old, and I'm gonna be 34 soon. Never had that issue. If anything, I feel, especially in Toronto, people just want to do their thing. You mind your business, I'll mind mine. We're all just doing our thing. I've actually met some of my neighbors on my new floor of my new condo, in the elevator or in the hall waiting for the elevator, and they've all been very sweet. I love that for me.
Love that journey for me.
So sorry to everyone else in this video, but I love that for me. What is that I hear? It's hydration station time. All aboard. You gotta drink your water, so do I. Cheers. I can no longer reach the camera from here. If you ordered a piece of merch and you take a picture of it, please tag me. I wish we could like send photos and tag each other. You know what? I can open up the YouTube community. It's like a brand new feature where you guys could post pictures, I think. Because I really want to see. But anyways, if you can find me on Instagram or my Facebook page and tag me or send it to me in a private message, I really want to see. I just want to see. Next story. Maybe I won. That could mean so many things. Won the neighbor war? Ooh. About 7 months ago, I moved back into my childhood home with my partner to care for my severely disabled mother and help my elderly father. Having grown up there, I know all the neighbors. There are a few new faces, but everyone is kind and quiet. Then we get to the neighbor forged by Satan herself. It all started one afternoon, about a month after we have moved back. I noticed that she was constantly leaning out her window, watching us while we worked or spending time in the garden. It's always about a frickin' garden. At first, I didn't think much of it. She's an elderly woman, maybe she just didn't have anything else to do, and it was her right to stand at her window as long as she pleased. Plus, she did watch me grow up. Her granddaughter and I used to play together. We are roughly the same age. She used to lend me CDs, come over for coffee, and chat with my mother back when she was still in good health. So really, I wasn't worried about her behavior at all. A little bit of background. We have 4 cats. 3 are purebreds gifted to us by a dear friend who is a breeder, and 1 is a stray that I took in from the place where I used to volunteer. Initially, to get them used to the garden, which is quite large, we decided to use harnesses to prevent them from accidentally running off. Also, since we had purebred cats and knew there was cruel people out there, we wanted to avoid losing them and never seeing them again. They were already used to the harnesses because our previous home did not have a private garden, so we used to take them to nearby parks and it caused them no stress at all. They see the harness, they know what it's for, and they happily come over on their own to have it put on. We keep an eye on them at all times now, but they are free to roam. It was just a phase to get them used to it. I should add that I've also worked with animals for years now, and I know how to handle and care for them. I would never do anything against their will or well-being, and this person knows that. One afternoon, while we were keeping an eye on the cats and playing with them, I started hearing a voice in the background muttering something. At first, I didn't pay much attention. I figured it was just someone on the phone. A few minutes later, I recognized the voice. I looked up slightly and I saw that she had opened her window shutter just a crack, enough to watch us. Well, that's not creepy at all. I can just like imagine it peering through. And then all you see is her eyes. Ooh. I shrugged it off and I went back to petting and playing with the cats. Then the voice became very clear. Oh, they're beautiful. Beautiful. Wow, so beautiful. Oh my God, look at that. How wonderful. Yeah, they're beautiful. Yeah, right. They're beautiful. Wow, okay. Well, the way I'm reading it is creepy. But it wasn't a genuine tone. It sounded truly spiteful, almost like she was mocking the way I was interacting with the cats. Oh, so she was more sassy, like, oh, they're beautiful. Wow, so beautiful. Oh my God, look at that. How wonderful. Got it. I thought maybe her dementia was starting to set in, so I just ignored it. A few days later, my sister came to visit. She pulled me aside and told me that this neighbor had gone to her claiming I was telling people that she and my other sister weren't doing a damn thing to help care for our mother, and that the whole burden was falling on me and my partner. Regardless of whether I actually thought that or if that was the reality of the situation, the fact is I had never even spoken to this woman. I told her it wasn't true at all. I had only spoken to the neighbor one afternoon while we were moving boxes, and she was the one who had told me about her own family business. I certainly hadn't expressed any opinions or shared any private details about my mother, my partner, or my situation with my sisters. My sister breathed a sigh of relief. She said she hadn't really believed that I had said those things, but she thought the neighbor was losing her mind. Apparently, the woman had caused a scene in a pastry shop shortly after telling her this, freaking out because she thought the price of the pastries was too high. She also added that the old woman had complained bitterly about how I treated the cats, thinking I was an idiot for keeping them on harnesses. My sister explained to her that some of the cats were purebreds in a new area and needed time to adjust, and that I knew exactly how to handle animals, being an expert in the field, and I would never do anything to compromise their well-being. After my sister told me about this absurd incident, I started avoiding the neighbor whenever she came near our fence to talk to me. I stopped to say hello just once, and she launched into a rant about a neighbor who had recently passed away. In her humble opinion, it would have been better if the wife had wow. It would have been better if the wife had passed away instead, because the woman was stupid and didn't understand a thing compared to him. What a lovely thing to say. I looked at her in disgust, told her that wasn't a nice thing to say, and I walked away. Months go by and I keep hearing her muttering, making comments about the cats and saying other things I couldn't quite catch. One morning, while clearing away some dead leaves, I find an absurd amount of cigarette butts. I pick up about 150 to 200 of them, all the same brand, all in the same spot. Guess which window it was right under. I call their building manager. I explain the situation regarding the butts by sending photos and videos, and I ask if he could kindly issue a notice to the resident to stop this behavior, pointing out the fire hazard. The manager is incredibly polite, and by evening, he has put up the necessary signs in my neighbor's building. A few days later, another neighbor from the building next to my property stops me. She says that she is absolutely certain that the woman is the one responsible for the mess and that she is very upset by her behavior. I tell her that after all, the woman is elderly, maybe it's a touch of dementia, but the main thing is she stops because it's dangerous behavior and not just for my property. She tells me I'm wrong and that woman has always just been a crazy old biatch. Honestly, I'm a bit taken aback. I have fond memories of this woman, having lived in the same house with her and her granddaughter for a while, and remembering those times that she would come over to our place for coffee. I try not to dwell on it too much. A few weeks go by, I'm outside with my father, he is supervising my partner and me as we put up a new fence for the plants. And there she goes again, muttering from the window. That's when the insults start. She calls me fatso and lardass, and then says, "You're disgusting, a pig." I laugh because I've never been this thin in my life. I'm almost at my ideal weight after years of hormonal issues. Anyway, she insults my appearance in every way imaginable. Luckily, I don't care, but comments like that can drive a person to self-harm. I make a mental note of it and I just move on, and I ignore it. Days pass and the crazy woman is always watching me. I can't go out in the garden with the cats, sit outside, do chores, hang out the laundry, read, or smoke a cigarette without that psychopath watching me. After a few months, the situation becomes unbearable. On top of the insults about my looks, I also become a sleut and a hooer, in her oh so humble opinion. I start feeling anxious about going outside. I always have my partner or my father with me, hoping she'll leave me alone, but the behavior never stops. We had decided to ignore her anyway because she was almost certainly just a nasty person. Yes, the dementia had simply brought out that side of her, but we didn't want to stir up more trouble, especially with animals at risk. It's now June, my birthday month. I decided to throw a party for my friends because I've been cooped up at home for nearly a year looking after my mother. We are all decent young adults aged 30 to 37. Some have kids, and we are all truly well-mannered. In fact, none of the neighbors complained. Quite the opposite. They said that I should throw parties more often because I bring some life to the dead zone for old folks. Apparently though, the crazy neighbor did not see it that way. The next day, while we're tidying up, I noticed an absurd number of cigarettes again. What strikes me most is that they are all fresh, and some were tossed right near where my friend's children's were playing. That really sets me off. I went back out to the garden to clear up all that filth from the ground, and there she was, starting to grumble again. I didn't catch exactly what was said. I just looked up, stared her straight in the eye, and I started screaming. Like a lunatic myself. I told her she should be ashamed. Nobody had done a thing to her. It was disgusting of her to say those things and insult me, and to think I was deaf too, considering I work security and my hearing is perfectly fine. I had stayed quiet out of politeness because she's elderly, but she crossed the line. I wasn't going to let some old biatch make a fool of me anymore. At my request, my partner called the building manager since I was too angry to speak to him without using an absurd amount of profanity. He explained everything that had happened over the past few months. This time, gave the woman's full name. Magically, once he mentioned that we had already spoken to the police, who had told us exactly what to do if this latest attempt to resolve things failed, the manager then handed the call over to somebody else in the office. That person told my partner they would notify the woman's niece. My partner added that while we felt sorry for her if she had lost her mind, it wasn't our problem. We did have other things to worry about. We were free to do whatever we wanted in our own home without constantly being judged, watched, or insulted, and without someone polluting the air or risking setting the property on fire just because the hamster in her brain had stopped running on its wheel. It has almost been a month since that day, and I think I'm officially free of the crazy old lady. I think the hardest part about it is that you've said she has dementia, so I'm assuming that's been confirmed, and that adds a layer. When someone really starts losing their mind, but not in a joking way, it's almost out of their control, but also you shouldn't have to deal with that, and it's frustrating on the other end of it, and that's why I think some of these do genuinely need welfare checks. I'm happy the niece was notified. Maybe things can change in a positive way. Aren't I optimistic? Stay classy out there, you guys. Stay sassy. I'll see you tomorrow.